Hello everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. Just getting started here, just waiting for Facebook to sync up here. Okay, looks like we are live on Facebook as well. Welcome everyone. Okay, we're gonna tap the screen, share the live. This will boost up the views and get a few more people to the party. We've got some really exciting things to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about extreme ownership in healing and also communicating authentically. So these are two pretty good topics, and if we have time and if things are going well, we got a few people that are interested, we might kind of go into a little bit of spiritual metaverse kind of stuff. I was toying with that idea. So we may run a little bit longer than normal tonight, but should be fun, should be interesting. So let's talk about extreme ownership. So this all came up because of a story this morning. I had my cat Stumpy. And she is an extremely food motivated kitty cat. And she actually, hang on just a sec here. She always wants whatever it is that I'm eating. And lately she's been getting extra moochy with stuff, a little bit aggressive, pawing at my face, pawing at trying to get the food from me. And it doesn't matter if I have eggs, if I have peanut butter and toast, whatever it is, she wants some of what I'm having. And her mother, Katie will, they kind of tag team me like a pair of velociraptors. And Katie will sit on one side looking very cute, not pawing, not doing anything. And if I pay attention to Katie, that's when Stumpy will swoop in trying to get the food. Or vice versa. They kind of both do this. If I'm paying attention to Stumpy, then Katie will kind of sneak in quietly to try and get some food. So they work in unison very good. But I was finding I was getting a little frustrated with her behavior this morning. And I was like trying not to get irritated with it. And the concept of extreme ownership kind of came into play with this. So I'm just going to bump this up just a little bit. Facebook. There we are. Okay. So the concept of extreme ownership came into play when I was like, I know I believe in the whole concept and philosophy of extreme ownership, and it's not something that's easy to follow along with, because there are times where you're like, no, I don't want to hear that. Because once you believe this and you can see how it's truth and it's a universal truth that it applies in every situation, it becomes very frustrating and annoying because you can't blame anybody else for anything that's going on in your life. Not your cats, not your kids, not your husband, not your wife, not anybody in your life. You have to take extreme ownership of what is going on. I'm not saying that you control their behavior, but you are always, always responsible for how you respond. So, in knowing this, in taking the concept of extreme ownership and applying it to my cat, I'm like, well, dumbass, you're the one that actually feeds her and has encouraged this behavior. But today, you don't want this, so now you're going to be pissed off about it? It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. You have to take responsibility that you were actually the one feeding her. You have encouraged this behavior, and now you're mad at her because she's behaving in a way that when you're in a good mood, you find cute and sweet, and it's like, oh, look, I get to share some of my eggs with her, and, oh, I get to, look, she likes peanut butter. She never liked peanut butter before, but she saw one of the other cats wanting it, so now she wants it, and now she loves it. So I'm like, okay, I have to take ownership of this and I can't get frustrated with her because I was the one who encouraged and modeled this behavior and taught her that it was okay. So I can't turn around and change the rules and now get all pissed off about it. So this is where extreme ownership comes into play, because it's a matter of, I could get all upset And I could just like, oh, this friggin' cat's driving me nuts, and this is, I can't believe she's doing this. Maybe she's got a tapeworm. I don't know, like whatever. It's anything but my fault. And it's like, no, this is actually my fault. So therefore, I have to modify my emotions with this and decide whether or not this kind of behavior is okay for me or it is not okay. And if it's getting out of control and it's kind of gone to the other extreme, now I can kind of pull this back and not be worried about her behavior with this, right? And I can start to put things in place to kind of say, you know what, this is getting a little bit out of control. A little bit is cute, but too much is bad behavior. So now I have to manage this. It's now a dichotomy to manage rather than something that is binary, that it's on or off, right? Yes or no. So this is where extreme ownership kind of comes into play in doing these kind of things. And kind of expanding on extreme ownership is these things are universal truths. And you don't get the ability to actually apply this to somebody else's behavior. That's one of the catches. It is only something that applies to you. You can take extreme ownership, but you cannot demand extreme ownership from somebody else, because that doesn't work, and that's more of a dictatorship thing. So it's a very different leadership style. When you think of somebody who takes extreme ownership for whatever's going on in their company, in their life, whatever may be happening, and they may not technically be responsible for what has happened. So in the case of abuse, I did not call that abuse into my life. However, I am the one that has to actually deal with what has happened. And I have to deal with the incorrect things that I have been taught, the incorrect beliefs I have been taught in my life. And I now have to take ownership of that in being able to reprogram it. It's like, well, if I had a child, I don't have children, I have cats, but if I had a child, how would I want her to experience this world? How would I want her to believe about herself? What would those things be for me? How would I do things differently? And when we look at that kind of stuff, we see that we actually have the power to change how things have happened for us. And this is where real healing, deep healing, actually begins. But we can't do that if we are denying that we're affected by it in the first place. So, like I said, you can't demand somebody else to heal. You can't demand somebody else take responsibility, because all that does is cause them to put up this defense mechanism that they have to fight you. Hey, Peter, welcome back. Good to see you. Welcome. So in taking that extreme ownership, you can only apply this to yourself. And you can only look at how this applies to you, what the truth is for you, and what it is that you're willing to accept or not accept. And you don't have to have this carved in stone at any point in your journey. You can change your mind. This is your story, this is your life, and this, how you want it to unfold, is something that you can change at any given time. So these universal truths, they only apply to you. You don't get to tell other people how they should be taking ownership for their life. You can demonstrate it, and that's usually a better, stronger leader, one that actually demonstrates that they are taking ownership, they are making the changes. You don't have to be perfect as a leader, but you do need to be able to look at things in a way that inspires, and your behavior actually inspires other people to make those same changes within themselves. When you do that, then that is truly taking ownership, right? That you're showing other people the same path that you would want done for you. So this is why I come on here to share my experience, strength, and hope of how I've gone through being depressed, anxious, suicidal, and how I got myself to where I feel happy most of the time. Not all of the time, because that's a little weird, but it is possible. I mean, it is possible. There are people that do feel happy like almost all the time. I like a little bit of a balance so that I can fully appreciate the good things, that when they do come, they are true blessings, because I find the biggest blessings come after the hardest hardships, right? So when we can get through those, and it's like, you know, even in the Matrix, they talked about this in the movie of that the AI, the machine, they tried to create the perfect paradise so that we would be happy in the Matrix, and we kept waking up from it going, this is too good to be true, this can't be real. And so it's not our human experience to just live in complete joy and bliss. Now, maybe when we first started in the garden in Eden in the beginning, and then, you know, shit went sideways from there, right? So, yeah, we want to be able to look at the stuff of having a balance, having some, looking at the challenges that we experience as pathways to our blessings, okay? Now, I also want to talk about timing matters. So you can have the extreme ownership, but timing of it matters. Example, so I've had plenty of pets that have passed away, and each one, they had their own personality, their own characteristics, their own beautiful qualities about them. And you know, I've seen other people, like, you know, if a pet dies, they're like, don't worry, you can just get another one, or they try to replace it. And that doesn't work, not if you have that special connection, right? That you appreciate them for the qualities that they brought, and it's the differences that they brought. My cat, Ella, who passed away last year suddenly, she had some very unique personality traits. Now, somebody else dealing with her would think she's a wild cat. She was feral. But me, she was my cat. She was my girl. And, you know, now if somebody tells me at the beginning, it's like, oh, you know, you'll get over that, or you'll get another cat. And it's like, well, that may be true, but telling me right after she died is inappropriate timing, right? So we have to have understanding that there is a process that we go through when we are actually healing. So whether that's healing from trauma, whether that's healing from the death of a loved one, a breakup, any of those kind of things, that there are some challenges and some timing. So yes, while you may be factually true, it's like, oh, you know, sorry you lost your job, you'll get another one, don't worry about it. It's like, well, honoring the feelings that you feel in the moment is key with being able to understand. So we have to do this first with ourselves, is we have to understand and accept and appreciate exactly where we are in the moment that we're in, because if not, what ends up happening is we end up skipping the steps, and then you have to go back and you have to pay that price again, right? That if you try to rush through it, then you're robbing yourself of the process of truly healing and getting through this, right? So in taking that extreme ownership, it's looking at our healing, looking at how we truly feel, and not trying to, because I did that in the beginning when I first started healing. It's like, well, the logical thing is, if the end process is I'm supposed to forgive and be loving and all those kind of things, I'll just skip through all the anger and denial and sadness part, and I'll just, okay, I forgive. Yeah, it doesn't work that way, because then little things would happen and it'd be like resentful and pissed off and all of these kind of things and irritated about stuff. And it's like, no, you haven't fully healed. You haven't fully let that go. And it wasn't until I went through the process of fully being angry with what had happened and the lack of response of what had happened. Of course, my cat. That one likes to sing. His name is Felix. He's a little jerk. Felix, come on, man. So, it's all to test my patience and make sure that I can follow through with my train of thought. Can I focus? Love these tests. They're awesome. So, in going through this stuff, it's a matter of looking at, I couldn't skip the step to, being aware that, the stuff that had happened and the lack of response to what had happened. So one of the big things that I had when I first started healing was around the pain of, I told everybody what had happened to me. I told teachers, I told friends, I told family, and I told my mom, and nobody did anything. So I had to do a lot of work around the value of nobody actually cared that this stuff was happening to me. It wasn't important. And there's layers of this kind of stuff that I've had to do over time. If I get into a new situation, sometimes it will rub up against that and it'll trigger some of that. And although I've done a lot of healing work, it's like, there's a bit of extra here or there's a little piece that got missed and now I gotta fix that. And that's why that situation kind of came up, is for me to actually heal. So this is something that's really important as you're going through your healing journey, to be able to look at and not skip the steps, to feel those feelings. So if you're in that stage of anger and rage and pain, it doesn't have to last forever, and emotions are not supposed to last forever. You're not supposed to stay stuck in any one given emotion, including the good ones. It's normal for us to have this ebb and flow, this up and down, right? Now it's when we have those high highs and the low lows, that's where it gets a little bit scary. But if we understand the healing process, it's not so scary to know that, this is just, there's something I'm supposed to learn from this. There's something I'm supposed to pull some insight from. And being able to sit with those feelings and not react, make sure that you're not lashing out, that you're not making big decisions when you're in those high emotional peaks, or even in those lows, okay? So this brings me to communicating authentically. So in order for us to communicate authentically, we actually need to do that inner work. We need to know ourselves inside, because what ends up happening, and usually if you've been through traumatic experiences, you tend to be much more outward focused. You tend to be focused on, am I saying the right thing that they're going to like? Is this what they want to hear? We are conditioned, even in school, even if you haven't been through trauma, we're conditioned to give the teacher the answer that they want, that they understand, that rather than truly learning to think for ourselves and think critically for ourselves. So even on small scale, we are conditioned to look externally for validation instead of finding that validation within ourselves. There's a whole lot of reasons for it that I can get into another time, but having that inward focus, and I want to share a story with this, because in the beginning of when I was doing my healing in my early 20s, I had realized that one of the things that I did is I would often lie when it was just as easy to tell the truth. And this whole concept kind of came into the forefront because I didn't even realize that I was doing it. I was making up stories to impress people. Because I thought everybody else had this really glamorous life and I was just a loser who stayed home on the weekend. And so I felt the need to compensate for that by making up stories of all these cool things that I did over the weekend, and they weren't really that cool. But I thought that other people, the coworkers, because they seemed to go out all the time, they seemed to party all the time and drink all the time, and I didn't do any of that stuff. None of it. So it's like I would make up these stories to get to get their approval. And they didn't care, but the other thing that was funny is they knew that I was full of shit too. They knew I was not authentic with that, because you can feel an energy when somebody is not authentic with it. And I see this a lot too in sales, because I've done a lot of sales training and role plays and stuff like that, that people that are new, that are more junior, they often are so focused on, like, what does the script say? And if they say this, then I need to say this. And they're not actually being authentic and having a real conversation with a real person that's across from them. And that is one of the things that ends up failing. So there's benefits to scripts of at least understanding, but it's more understanding the process behind it, of why you want to think in that particular way and how that benefits the potential client, right? Not from a sense of manipulation or anything like that, or trying to force somebody to come in and do something that they're not ready to do, but helping them through a decision-making process by truly seeking to understand, and how can I actually help this person? How can I help them make that decision, right? And this is where it comes into a piece of decision making in and of itself, right? If you have the right information, if you have the right data that you are looking for, that'll give you that, either that signal to be a hell yes, I'm going to go forward with this, or hell no, this is not for me, this is not what I'm looking for, this is not going to solve the problem the way I thought. Or there can also be a wait. And what wait is, it's like, so when people stall for certain things, that waiting and seeing is because there's some uncertainty there. There's something that they haven't, they're still missing that little piece of the puzzle that'll either turn it to a hell yes or a hell no. And oftentimes we avoid this, or we accept those kind of answers, those deflections, because we don't want to force the issue on one side of the fence or another. And we're afraid of making mistakes often. So the more that we can actually be authentic within ourselves and do that inner work within ourselves, it allows us to have real conversations, authentic conversations, whether that's in our relationships, whether that's a sales call, whether that's in business, and you're talking with your team or negotiating with a client, any of those kind of things. It's important to have that inner knowing within yourself, that ability to truly know yourself, and that know that the emotions that you feel for certain things, because if you can't recognize them within yourself, you're definitely not going to recognize them in others, or you're going to, even worse, you're going to, because you're not comfortable with that emotion, you're going to squish that down in somebody else. So this is why it's so important, especially if you're in sales, to do the inner work, to be able to be authentic with yourself first, so that you can be authentic with your potential clients, and then you can help them make a proper decision, an informed decision of whether or not this thing is truly for them. And I think that is the important piece of being a sales rep or closer, because too often those metrics get focused on the KPIs, and then the closer or the sales rep veers away from true authentic conversations and truly understanding, is this going to actually help somebody? And it becomes more about hitting the numbers than it does about helping the person. And so this is one of the reasons why I don't like KPIs for sales reps. It's good for you to as a manager, to be able to understand them, to use it as a tool to gauge of what you need to adjust. And if you see things are lower, then you want to be able to help help them emotionally, help your closers emotionally. So because if you can help your closers emotionally connect, then they're going to connect with their prospects a lot better. And then you'll be able to see true, authentic connection, and you'll have a whole lot more hell yeses or true hell nos. And then if there is somebody that the only thing that's holding them back is they don't technically have the funds to get in, then you know it's still a hell yes, but it's a timing issue rather than a decision issue, right? So because at the end of the day, that is a reality. I could love a program all I want, but I can't walk into, I don't know, a Porsche or a Lamborghini dealership today. I can't do that and say, yeah, I want that car. Soon. Maybe one day. Soon. Not maybe. Soon. It will happen. But either way, it's like, and plus, at this point, I don't even know if I would want a Lamborghini. I think I'd probably be more geared to a Mustang. I like that. but either way, that's off track. So helping people make decisions comes from true authenticity within ourselves first, and then being able to communicate that clearly with somebody else to help them understand what it is that they need. Is it a hell yes? Is it a hell no? And that means asking questions. Now, you can get some varied responses depending on that person's level of awareness as well, too. Their level of healing inner work. And sometimes when we're direct, and because we've done the healing work, we forget that other people haven't. And it can be hard, it can feel harsh when it comes across to them. So that's why you may have all these different sales trainings, and they're geared for different levels of people, right? So there's some that are beginning stages of their awareness and healing journey, and then there's higher level stages of their healing journey. And usually the beginning stages are usually a little bit more lower ticket, and then the higher ones are really high ticket, right? So because they have an inner awareness, they can appreciate the pain that comes with growth and what it takes to move through that and navigate through that. You wouldn't want to put somebody who's in kindergarten into university, because that can be a really painful experience, and then they don't, even though it's a great program, they don't get the full benefit out of it. And that can be hard to gauge, and oftentimes you can get somebody who is a really, really good closer that ends up dragging somebody in that wasn't truly ready. And that can be a problem for them, and there can be a lot more pain. Now, if somebody has some resilience and they're a little bit wired weird, kind of like me, that they can kind of get through that. It may take them a little longer than initially planned. However, understanding this benefit of what it's like to walk through fire and then walk back again and back again. So much so that you have signposts and you know the path completely of getting through being in that darkness and that pain and feeling that to the fullest extent. And the reason that you feel it to the fullest extent is because if you don't, you know that you're going to have to do this again. So I might as well go all in, feeling it all and being able to get through that, and having somebody guide you through that process is vital. Whether that is the personal change journey, healing journey, or if that is a business professional one where you're going through a lot of changes in your business and you're trying to ramp up to a different level, or you're trying to change your culture or implement a new system. Those big changes cause a lot of emotion in your team, in your people, and not addressing those is a really big and painful lesson if you don't pay attention to it, because you'll find out on the other side of why that emotional work is so important, right? And oftentimes it's more inexperienced novice people who haven't been through those kind of changes, those big changes, and seeing the kind of pain that happens in them. And it's like, yes, trauma bonds do form with coworkers because it's like there's some times where shit is going sideways so bad. And I remember a friend of mine back when I was working in the warehouse. Oh my God, my hair is driving me crazy. A friend of mine, we were working in the warehouse. We had 6 people that did data entry of the paperwork for the shipping and receiving. And a bunch of them had gotten sick. And it ended up that there was just myself and this other girl running the whole department. And we were like taking turns breaking down at our desk. We were like crying because we were working all kinds of hours, crazy. And it's like, I look back now, it probably wouldn't have been as hard, but at the time, we were still young. We were like early 20s. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. And here we were running this stuff, and nothing we did was good enough. Everything was always late. We were so stressed out. And at the time, I was early in my healing journey, and I actually said, you know what? This is crazy, because we kept asking for help. And we kept asking for help. And I hadn't done enough work around this to know that this was also a little bit of a trauma response from me, because I had told everybody what had happened to me and nothing got done. And then re-experiencing that in the work environment, it really flared things up. And I reacted probably at a 15 when the situation probably was maybe a 7 or an 8. So it was kind of like an escalated response to the situation. So if you happen to be in a work environment and somebody seems to be like, geez, what's your problem? Like, you're kind of way over the top. Like, it's not that bad. Like, what's going on? I can promise you they're probably having a trauma response from something that's happened to them previously, either in a previous work environment or in their childhood, that these things come up. So even if you yourself have not experienced a traumatic childhood, maybe your childhood was wonderful and perfect and great, I'd be concerned because I don't know how anybody gets through. But then again, I have a 10 out of 10 on the ACEs test. So neither here nor there. If you're working with somebody and they seem to be having an extreme response to something that seems pretty minor to you, it's probably a reaction. They're viewing it from a filter from the past. 20% is what is actually occurring in the moment or today, and 80% is a reaction from the past. Okay? Whether that is childhood past or a work past or a previous relationship past. Something like that is triggering these fear responses, these aggressions, these emotions in them, that they are not reacting as their best self. You as a leader can have a whole lot more patience with the person because you can see it from the aspect of that they're in a state of fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. And when we can address that from a place of giving them support, giving them kindness, understanding, having authentic conversation with them, and help guiding them in that, when you're actually aware of how people respond because of trauma, then you can actually communicate with them in a lot more effectively, and you can actually be an instrument for healing for the people that work with you, work under you. You can make a lot of difference, not only in that employee's life, but in the lives of the people that they go home to. So this is really powerful at understanding the healing work and taking that full extreme ownership as a leader to take it upon ourselves to do something to help people, rather than just writing them off that they're a lost cause or putting a label on them. Oh, they're ADHD. Oh, they're autistic. Oh, they're this, they're that. They're whatever. Those labels don't actually help. They are ways, tools to diagnose particular behaviors from an external perspective. It is not from an internal perspective, because for that person, however they're behaving, it makes sense to them. And that's what you need to understand. And that is where you have to elevate yourself as a leader, as a business owner, to be able to understand why people react in certain ways so that you can help guide them appropriately to a behavior that is better for them. And if it's better for them, then it's also better for the company. Because if they are happier and they are feeling more fulfilled, they feel safe, they feel secure, they feel a sense of loyalty and camaraderie and community and family within that business, they're going, healthy family. I have to add that in, because not all of us is like, oh, we have a family environment. Oh, hell no. Because a lot of families, they haven't dealt with their toxic bullshit. So, that can be traumatic in and of itself. So making sure that the family environment that you are joining, if it's a company, that it is actually a healthy family environment where there is open communication, there's the potential for being able to grow, and understanding that with that growth comes pain, right? And being able to help each other through that, knowing and believing that they are capable of getting through that. Because when we actually convey that to somebody, I firmly believe, as a leader, people rise to the level of your expectation of them. And I'm not talking of like, oh, I expect you to take extreme ownership and you can't whine, you can't complain. No, that's not what I'm talking about. That's using something that is a really good tool as a weapon. And we need to make sure that we use these tools, not as weapons to beat people up. We do not demand that people take extreme ownership. We display that we take extreme ownership ourselves, and that allows, when they see that behavior, they're going to model that. They are going to mimic that. At no time are you to demand that kind of behavior from somebody. It is incumbent on us to, as leaders, to be able to take that upon ourselves and kind of go, why am I not able to get through to this person? Why am I not able to communicate with them in a way that they understand? Now, I understand there's certain time frames, time limits that you need to put on that for the business to run effectively, but making sure that you do absolutely everything that you can to help that person in whatever way that you can, okay? And knowing that when you don't, that there's still something that you haven't learned as a leader to be able to communicate and get through to that person. Now, sometimes the lesson is that they're exposed to experience that pain. I remember a friend of mine, she talked about years ago, and I thought it was a really interesting perspective. We were both in healing and recovery, and she had worked really hard at this job that she was in. And then she got fired from the job, and I remember asking if she was okay with it and was trying to help her find something else. And I remember her saying she was actually relieved when she got fired from the job, because she didn't really want to be there. She didn't really like what she was doing, but she wouldn't allow herself to quit, because quitting wasn't in her operating procedure. So she hung on and hung on and hung on. So it's kind of like God stepped in and did for her what she couldn't do for herself. So in some ways, those negative things end up being a blessing. It made her redirect. It made her reassess what is actually important to her. What is it that she truly wanted to do? And she tried a couple of different things as she was trying to find some things. But I remember looking at it from that perspective, and I thought, wow, that's really an enlightened perspective to take that in as. So yeah, so this is my take, and it all started with my cat this morning, of her being bad and trying to get the food and being a little too aggressive with it. And I realized that that is on me to correct that behavior, because I have allowed it up until then, and in fact encouraged it in some ways. So I don't get to get mad at her. I don't get to get pissed off that she's behaving this way. I need to take that extreme ownership and I need to modify the behavior and correct it. Or I can also say, you know what? It's fine. 90% of the time, it's fine. I can see that I'm just irritated because I'm thinking of XYZ, whatever it is, or I'm trying to do something else and she's just trying to get attention the way she normally does and get the food that she normally gets. And I went and changed the rules and I didn't communicate. So when we understand it from that kind of perspective, it really changes things and it allows us to take that power back for ourselves and not feel like things are happening to us. They are happening and we get to respond. We get to choose how we respond to those situations. So guys, with that, I hope you found this helpful. Thank you for coming out. Again, tomorrow I'll be on at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. If you kind of popped in halfway, I will be posting these on my YouTube channel, which is Coach Tina B 125. You can look it up there. You can go watch the replays. Make sure that you subscribe and tap the screen, like, share, so that you get the notifications of when I go live. And I think one of the things I'll be doing, I have to dig into how I'm going to do this, but I think I might, instead of going live on Facebook, I might just go live on YouTube and TikTok. Because I like how my TikTok people interact. Peter, like you, always coming back and having my regulars here is really, really helpful. It's encouraging. I like seeing the same faces back. So, guys, with that, I hope you have an amazing night, and we will talk to you later. Bye.